Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're hoping these PS2 games will one day have another chance on modern consoles. The Punisher.
Any last words, Eddie?
My ma'll never rest until you're dead!
The Punisher has had quite a tumultuous history befitting his character. After Thomas Jane's portrayal, we didn't see another worthy live-action iteration until Jon Bernthal, and arguably made the character more popular than ever. So why not give his best, and frankly only, video game outing another chance? We'd love to see the game adopt a more comic book cel-shaded art style to help the game avoid the troublesome adults-only rating the original nearly had. And with all the advancements in not only tech and game engines, the developers could also really be set loose to come up with even more elaborate ways to make those frank interrogations more interactive. We'd also love to see players be given the option to play as their favorite Punisher, whether they be the classic comic book, Thomas Jane, or Jon Bernthal, much in the way Spidey has innumerable unlockable outfits.
New York City never changes. No one catches you when you fall.
Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII. Before we begin, let's get something straight. Dirge of Cerberus is not a great game. It's alright, it's fine, but that's not why it made it on this list. What makes this game special is actually the recent release of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Originally, the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, including Advent Children and Crisis Core, were meant to flesh out the world of Final Fantasy VII and not necessarily be considered canon. That all changed, however, after the release of Remake, and now all additional content is part of 7's lore. With this in mind, Dirge of Cerberus becomes very integral and deserving of the same love and attention the original title has been given to fully flesh out its world, gameplay, and characters, as well as continue the story of Vincent Valentine after the events of Remake, however they might turn out in the end.
I'm sorry I let you suffer. For so long. Vincent, take care of her, will you?
Wait.
Freedom Fighters.
Whoa, hey, stay cool, man. I'm just the plumber.
Where is your girlfriend, citizen?
Girlfriend? Hey, she's not me.
IO Interactive has been on a hot streak lately with their updates to the Hitman series, but there's another potential franchise that deserves some love. Released right in the middle of Hitman's early days, Freedom Fighters puts a pair of plumbing brothers up against an invading force in an alternate history New York, with a squad of AI companions to combat the onslaught. If given the chance, IO could streamline many of the game's tactical elements and even infuse some of their patented stealth tactics into gameplay, giving players multiple ways to tackle objectives in a hopefully open-world, war-torn New York City. With strategic games seeing a resurgence as well as improvements to squad AI, as well as third-person combat, and while some narrative elements might need to be updated, Freedom Fighters has the chance to defy the odds and rise to the challenge.
So I ask you now to take up arms against the evil invaders and yell in their faces that they will never take our freedom!
Eco. Team Eco and Japan Studio came out swinging with their first game, and it was instantly a hit with critics and quickly achieved cult status. While the sequel Shadow of the Colossus was undoubtedly more of a commercial success, Eco still holds a special place in the hearts of many gamers. Following the titular character Eco as he is locked away in a castle after being shunned by his village for his horns, he soon meets another captive in the castle, a young girl named Yorda, and the two set about finding a means of escape by solving a myriad of puzzles and fighting off shadows determined to recapture Yorda once again. Given the incredible remake of Shadow of the Colossus, it seems only right for the title that started it all to be given the same treatment and brought into the modern age for a whole new generation.
Jump!
Need for Speed Underground. The right game in the right place can make all the difference in the world. And that's never been more true with Need for Speed Underground. Released at the peak of the Fast and Furious franchise's original run in popularity, this game was every street racer and family's dream come true. Successful enough to produce a much beloved sequel that took the concept to the open world, there's still something about the arcadey nature of the first title. From memorizing the tracks to shave precious seconds off of your time, or hitting that nitrous boost seconds from the finish line to overtake first place, it is, chef's kiss good. That adrenaline pumping feeling of narrowly winning a drag race by an inch or a mile is still a rush that the series has yet to recapture even almost 2 decades later.
I may push the limits of my car on the track, but off it, I drive safely and responsibly. Save the racing for the track, and if you feel the need for speed, just play Underground.
Shadow of Rome. Ancient Rome is a setting often overlooked by video games, which is a shame, considering the violent and turbulent time being the perfect setting for video games. One game that attempted to capitalize on this time period, possibly too early, was Shadow of Rome, where much of the gameplay was focused on bloody arena combat filled with bodily dismemberment and chariot races. The game also featured another playable character whose levels focused more on stealth and narrative information gathering, but these sections slowed the game's pace to a crawl rather than offered a reprieve from the endless carnage. A remake could expand on the game's already impressive combat and update the stealth sections to include real stealth elements that many games have improved upon since Shadow of Rome's initial release.
This must be their best fighter, the one saved for last. I cannot die now!
Tony Hawk's Underground.
And yo, Merry Christmas.
Thanks!
With the 5th entry in the now legendary Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise, Neversoft decided to make things a bit more personal and gave us one of the most hated characters on the PS2, Eric Sparrow. No one could have expected such an engaging and emotional storyline from a series about building combos and doing your best not to land on your face after a half-pipe. With some of the most diverse skating locations in the series, Underground nailed every aspect of its gameplay, from the familiar yet intuitive controls to a narrative that had no right to be this good. Replaying through the game a second time even unlocks an alternate ending that gives players exactly what they wanted: the chance to knock Eric's teeth out. After the success of the Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remake, Underground needs to be the next in line to receive a fresh coat of paint.
We're gonna make something bigger and better, totally unexpected.
Resident Evil Code Veronica X. Who's in charge of greenlighting the remakes over at Capcom? I just want to have a word about continuity with them. So far, we've had amazing remakes of Resi 1 and 2, the well-meaning remake of 3, and possibly the best remake of them all with 4. Where's the love for what is canonically the next game after 3?
Well, it seems your brother is under surveillance by Umbrella.
What? I've got to contact Leon and tell him to let my brother know he's being monitored.
Claire Redfield is definitely a fan favorite character who has been missing from the mainline games for far too long. And while she did make a comeback in Revelations 2, there's no excuse for her first solo outing to be left in the past, considering the other remake's current successes. Code Veronica was also the last mainline entry to still embrace the series' cramped corridor and puzzle-based architecture before losing itself to the more action-heavy future entries, and would look absolutely outstanding in Capcom's RE engine.
You're responsible for the creation of the T Veronica virus. And now the only existing sample is in your body. I want it. Now!
Bully.
Welcome to Bullworth Academy. I'm sure you'll be very happy here. Very happy indeed.
Taking the GTA formula and making it a bit more kid-friendly, Bully gave players classes to attend, friends to make, an open world to explore, and an arsenal that would make Bart Simpson jealous. And despite the game's title, Jimmy spends most of the game defending other students from bullies and playing pranks while attempting to keep up with his studies. A sequel was in the works before being cancelled, and given all the advancements Rockstar has made as a developer, crafting fully realized worlds and memorable characters, we love the chance to re-enroll in Bullworth Academy and see what Rockstar could accomplish with a more contained open world. Rockstar could even implement their online infrastructure they're so fond of with school activities for players to compete in, like track, dodgeball, and other extracurricular activities. The money is right there for the taking, Rockstar.
Yeah, cursed by brains. Do you know what torture it is to be thinking all the time? No, of course you don't.
Metal Arms, glitch in the system.
Hey, over here! Zombie found something!
What kind of droid is that?
I don't know, I've never seen anyone like him.
Let's get him back to Droid Town.
Metal Arms Glitch in the System is definitely a title that a lot of people slept on during its initial release, and that's a shame because it's genuinely a very good shooter with an engaging story and likable characters. Playing as the amnesiac Glitch, you take on the evil General Corrosive and his armies to protect the last remaining droid settlements from the General's ever-advancing war machine. The game was generally well received by critics and even set up a sequel by the time credits rolled. However, it failed to generate the sales necessary to make that a reality.
You got a screw loose, kid? What the hell do you know about fighting Mills, newbie?
Nada. You got any other options, Chief?
Yeah, well, learn fast or die trying.
Being able to revisit a game with all the groundwork already in place, just remade in something like the Unreal Engine 5, could prove this little robot's journey was more than just a glitch in the system.
Does his ID chip still function?
Yeah, says his name is Glitch.
All right, Glitch. Welcome to the Droid Rebellion.
Downhill Domination. What happens when you combine Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX with blazing speed and adrenaline-filled bike combat? Downhill Domination is another extreme sports title that is often overlooked by many, possibly due to not having a pro athlete's name on the cover. With players racing to be the first to the bottom of the mountain, fans of the SSX series will feel right at home as they perform tricks at breakneck speeds while using every weapon at their disposal to literally knock out the competition. A remake would be able to capitalize on the game's insane sense of speed, careening down the game's many mountains, narrowly missing trees and guardrails while trying not to fly off the edge. Give gamers the chance to play in VR, and you'll have one of the most visceral experiences imaginable. The Thing.
We still have nothing to go on. One other thing. I think it rips through your clothes when it takes you over.
Very few video game tie-ins can hold the honor of being considered a canonical sequel to the movie it's based on, and The Thing remains one of the best examples of how to do it right. As part of one of the teams sent to investigate Outpost 31, it's not long before players discover The Thing is still very much around and any one of your team could be one of them. The atmosphere perfectly captures the feel of the film, and updates to the gameplay, in particular the gunplay and melee combat, along with a more dedicated system, possibly akin to the Nemesis system, would make the paranoia of your squadmates even more realistic, and each encounter more harrowing with your limited resources and squad's untrustworthiness. The Thing is a timeless classic, and its sequel deserves a chance for players to experience the complete story.
So what's your name, smartass? McCready. R.J. McCready.
The Simpsons Hit and Run.
Oh, do I have to?
You can drop it off on the way to work.
And I have to go to work?
We all know how much EA loves money. And yet, even though The Simpsons might not be as popular as they used to be, they are still undoubtedly a money-printing franchise that EA has completely squandered in the last decade. Released during the wave of GTA clones hitting the market, The Simpsons Hit and Run finally found a formula that was perfect for the license.
Sorry, Bart. I can't serve booze to a minor. It ain't right.
I'm here to buy fireworks.
Oh, hell yeah.
A fully realized and explorable Springfield, all the beloved characters brought to life by their original voice actors, and a hilarious script with input from the show's creators themselves, Hit and Run finally managed to make more than just a clone of the popular franchise. This is undoubtedly one of the most requested remakes by fans, and with EA seemingly on a new track of listening to the fans and putting games first, maybe there's finally hope in revisiting Springfield once again.
I gotta get the new Bone Storm or I'll be as uncool as Millhouse. I'm standing right here, Bart. Hey, that's great.
Maximo goes to glory.
What? Not afraid of death?
There are worse things than death.
True, true. Things like that.
Updating an old IP for modern consoles can be a hit or miss affair. Isn't that right, Bomberman Act Zero? Described by many as the original Dark Souls, the game retains the same challenging gameplay of its original incarnation, right down to Maximo losing bits of his armor every time he's hit. And while there is something inherently funny about taking down a hulking boss in your undies, the game lives up to the comparison with its tough but fair combat and platforming. These days, unless you're Nintendo, there's been a severe lack of 3D platformers, and now would be the perfect time for this king to dust off his armor and resurrect himself one last time. Just don't lose that cartoony art style for something dark and gritty, okay, Capcom?
Well, buddy, I owe you one. You saved a day and won back both our kingdoms.
The Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction. Given the fact that one of the main draws of gaming is the quote-unquote power fantasy that comes with losing yourself in a game, it's honestly remarkable that the Hulk hasn't had more time in the spotlight. A character almost perfectly designed for the video game space, and given the character's unwavering popularity, it's criminal we haven't had a proper Hulk video game since this classic back on PS2.
Banner, what did you do to me, you freak? You've turned me into an abomination. Huh?
No other game to date featuring the mean green fighting machine has even come close to giving players the feeling of all that rage and power at their fingertips. With the ability to power up and completely level the battlefield, as well as freely explore and destroy to your heart's content, the time has come for the Hulk to reclaim his rightful place as the world's strongest weapon of destruction.
Our bullets are just bouncing off! We're gonna need the army to stop this thing!
Dark Cloud. It seems like every other game nowadays has found ways to add settlement building elements into their games. So why not bring back one of the earliest titles to experiment with the possibility of combining those ideas into an RPG? After a dark genie destroys your village, Tone ventures into randomly generated dungeons to retrieve pieces of your village and its residents and rebuild your home better than before. The game featured many survival elements such as a thirst meter, as well as a weapon leveling system in place of the standard character level up progression. This was about as close as PlayStation gamers got to a Legend of Zelda title on their system, and with Level 5 still making games today, they owe it to themselves to revisit the title that helped launch their success in the RPG genre that continues with the Ni no Kuni franchise. SSX Tricky. What happened to extreme sports games? Building combos with outrageous characters while performing death-defying tricks was a staple of the late 90s and early 2000s, and it's a genre we deeply, deeply miss. Arguably one of the best titles that represented this trend was the SSX series, and the best entry is undoubtedly a bit tricky. EA recently made great use of realistic graphics paired with an anime comic book art style with the recent Need for Speed Unbound, and that style would be a perfect fit for the over-the-top snowboarders, and getting those splashes of color every time players land a perfect trick would be visually stunning against the white backdrop of the snowy mountains. There have been other recent attempts to bring back the genre, but none have been able to recapture the spirit and just downright fun energy of the early SSX games. Not even the series' own sequels. PsyOps, the Mindgate Conspiracy.
What?
Before there was Control or even the Force Unleashed, there was PsyOps. A game that gave you psionic abilities that let you throw not only objects around the environment, but enemies as well. You could take over a foe and use them to attack their allies, or even quite literally blow their minds. While the story was engaging enough and had more than a few twists and turns, the gameplay was where the title truly shined, and is even more impressive given the tech it was running on back in 2004. However, despite all the critical praise and love from the fanbase, the game never received a sequel despite ending on a shockingly blatant cliffhanger that still bothers me to this day. PsyOps laid a lot of groundwork for psionic powers in gaming, and it's time the OG Psy operative took back control.
Nick, if we don't meet again,
We will.
The Suffering.
There's something in here. It's in here! Help me!
With the recent resurgence of horror remakes on modern consoles, now would be the perfect time to give this overlooked horror classic a chance to step out of the shadows. With all hell descending on the prison where Torque is being held, a remake could give the game's already impressive creature designs even greater detail, and provide nightmares for an entire new generation. The gameplay itself and some story elements might need to be tweaked or updated, but the core experience still holds up today alongside the likes of Resident Evil 4 and Silent Hill 2. A more up-close, over-the-shoulder perspective, and leaning more into the true horrors of the environments and atmosphere, paired with the game's already included insanity meter, could even help the title surpass the likes of the aforementioned classics, with each demonic horror Torque encounters representing one of the many forms of execution within the prison.
Guess it's your lucky day, huh? Jesus, you look like you've really been through hell.
Burnout 3 Takedown. Often imitated, but never duplicated, Burnout 3 is a game whose DNA is still felt in arcade racing games almost 2 decades after release. The perfect blend of speed and vehicular carnage, Burnout 3 was the culmination of what the series had been building to and nailed every aspect of its varied gameplay. Besides the standard racing events that saw you slam your opponents to gain the upper hand, as well as a much needed boost, the game featured the fan favorite Crash Mode, which tasks players with creating as much financial damage as possible before their car becomes nothing more than twisted metal. Even with the series' most successful entry taking Burnout open world, Burnout 3 set not only the bar for all future arcade racers, but the entire racing game genre that has yet to be met, even to this day. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.